our speaker for 2 o'clock is Sherman Minton. And for anybody who doesn't know him, he wrote the book on Indiana amphibians and reptiles. So we're pretty excited about getting him here today to speak on amphibians and reptiles in the tri-state area and throughout Indiana. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Sherman Minton and let him take the program. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to come down here. I'm very much impressed with all of the nice certain specimens that are on display, and also the level of interest that all of you seem to have in amphibians and reptiles. Now, if we can turn on the projector, let's get the lights off.
Do you have the lights?
You want to get the lights off?
You get it.
These slides?
Yeah.
What I'm going to talk about is the tri-state area. The area within approximately 100 miles. What I did was just make an arc 100 miles from Evansville. And there, this will take you about to Louisville up here, take you about to Terre Haute up here, St. Louis maybe somewhere over in here, Cairo, Illinois, of course, down there. And this is an area that I've hunted reptiles and amphibians in for a great many years. Biodiversity is a word that you hear a lot these days, and this is a region that has, for a temperate zone region, a lot of biodiversity with respect to amphibians and reptiles. About 100 species of amphibians and reptiles in this area. I'm not going to talk about all of them, so don't worry about that. And one of the reasons we have this biodiversity is because this area lies at the northern limit of a lot of southern things that are associated with rivers and river swamps. What the biogeographers call the austro-riparian zone, or the southern river zone. And here we have a lot of southern plants, typically the cypress. You see the cypress knees here, crossvine, spider lily, and this also has been an interesting and important area in the history of herpetology and the history of natural history in the Midwest. And because of New Harmony, you all know, there was an idealistic communist settlement in the 1820s founded by Robert Owen. It was a far cry from the communism that we had in Russia and some other parts of the world. Didn't last very long, but it did attract a great number of important early naturalists. And this is the grave of one of them. This is the grave of Thomas Say, who was mainly interested in insects and in shells. He's called the father of American entomology and the father of American conchology, but he also was interested in reptiles, and he named a lot of our common reptiles like the queen snake, the western ribbon snake, black rat snake. All of those were species that were first named by Thomas Say. Another one of the naturalists who worked here was a Frenchman called Lesueur. Lesueur was mainly interested in, he was mainly interested in fish, but in the field of herpetology he was mostly interested in turtles. And he named quite a few turtles from New Harmony. This is the commoner spiny soft-shell turtle, and he named it twice. He gave one name to the big females that don't have much pattern, and he gave another name to these younger turtles, which have this nice spotted pattern. He called that Ocellata. And then he also named the other soft shell that's common around New Harmony. In fact, it's the one that's actually commoner. This is the smooth soft shell, or the brown soft shell, another common river turtle around New Harmony. And then here's a turtle that he named. He gave it the Latin name of Emys labyrinthica, the labyrinth turtle, but he never got around to publishing that name until the turtle had been named by somebody else. And they gave it the name Hieroglyphica, and it's the turtle we know today as the hieroglyphic turtle. It also is found in the very lower part of the Wabash. It is very rare today. It's one of our endangered species in Indiana. Gets to be fairly big. As a matter of fact, it's one of our bigger turtles in Indiana, but as I say, it is very rare. Another turtle that came out of the Wabash around New Harmony is this one here called the sawback or the false map turtle. This one's quite a puzzle even today for turtle experts because they're not able, there's a good big argument going even today as to whether these Indiana sawbacks, or these sawbacks in the tri-state area actually, represent 1, 2, or 3 species of turtles. We don't really know. There are a lot of nice puzzles around here. And then this gentleman, a German prince, Prince Maximilian of Wied, he came here also in the 1830s, and he named a turtle that has become world famous. This is the red-eared turtle, red-eared slider. He first discovered it at New Harmony, and of course, because it has such a beautiful little baby form, with the beautifully patterned shell and the red ears, and because it's fairly common, very common in the Mid-South, it got to be extremely popular in the pet trade. In the 1930s and on up until about 1970, millions of these little turtles were sold in dime stores and pet stores throughout the United States. And about that time, their sale in the United States was stopped for health reasons. But they're still sold by the thousands and probably millions throughout the world, and they have become established throughout the world. This turtle can be found in many parts of the world. A few years ago, when I was some of my colleagues writing a book on the reptiles of the Middle East war zone, we found out that there are red-eared turtles over in the Persian Gulf on Bahrain Island, introduced deaths undoubtedly. They're in Australia, they're in South Africa. A number of years ago, Madge and I were on the island of Okinawa off Japan. Madge caught a little turtle from the sidewalk vendor. She thought she was buying something that might be an interesting local turtle. It turned out to be a little red-eared cooter that might have come from his mother, grandmother, might have come from Real Foot Lake, or maybe even from New Harmony. Then, the Prince Maximilian also named a little frog from New Harmony, one that I think everybody, my generation in Indiana, has probably heard at one time or another in their life. It's the first little frog to sing in the spring. It's the striped chorus frog, and used to be extremely common all over Indiana. It's not quite so common now, but it's still a rather plentiful frog. Everybody hears its voice. Very few people have ever seen the frog. It was a rather secretive little thing. But it too was first discovered at New Harmony. Now, the biggest reptile in the Midwest, and one of the biggest reptiles in the United States, and for my money, the biggest freshwater turtle in the world, is one that very rarely shows up in the tri-state area. This is the alligator snapper. The record alligator snapper is a zoo specimen that weighed over 200 pounds. I believe it was 236 pounds. And most of the wild ones, however, are more or less in the 50 to 100 pound range, and that's still an enormous turtle. Here's another look at it. It's very much like the ordinary snapper, but it has these 3 heavy ridges on the shell that it keeps throughout its life. Baby common snappers have ridges. And I once drove all the way down to Gibson County to look at the turtle that somebody thought was an alligator snapper. It just happened to be a common snapper that, for some strange reason, had retained the ridges pretty well into the north side of the common snapper. This turtle also has a much more massive head. Now, another creature that is character that the early naturalists here didn't find. The early New Harmony naturalists, they reported on the snakes to some extent, but none of them ever mentioned the cottonmouth. And for that reason, for many, many years, I told people there were no cottonmouths in Indiana, that those old boys didn't find it back in the 1820s and 1830s. It probably wasn't there. They were right where it ought to be. Well, it so happened that in 1983, cottonmouths did show up at one site in Indiana. And we now know that there are at least one, possibly another site. Just a word or two about the cottonmouth. This is the general appearance of them. You saw them at the talk this morning. And this is the way they threaten you with their mouth open. The color of the mouth doesn't mean a thing. There are lots of snakes that have pale lines in the mouth. But the behavior does. The harmless water snakes will almost never, I would say pretty close to never, threaten in this manner. Now here's some of the spots where we found the cottonmouth fairly close to Evansville. This is Kentucky. This is an old Illinois record. And these are the two Indiana spots. That star up there is a pearl snake record. We haven't talked about that before. But anyhow, this is where the cottonmouth is close, relatively close to Evansville. Now it's found quite commonly in parts of western Kentucky and southern Illinois. Wherever I've visited quite a few of the cottonmouth areas in the northern part of the range, and all of them have something in common, and that is they have rock outcrops that are fairly close to swamps, within easy crawling distance for a cottonmouth, so that the snakes can winter in these rocky outcrops and live in the swamps in the summer. Rock outcrops don't have to be very big. The one over by Jasper is quite small. You really have to look hard, but it's there. Now, another aquatic snake that's basically a southern snake and is characteristic, particularly of the Indiana part of the tri-state area, is the copperbelly, the northern copperbelly. This is a snake that is being proposed for federal listing as an endangered threatened species. It's already a threatened species in Indiana. It's a very handsome, big, blackish snake with this red belly. And it is found fairly close to here. Another non-poisonous water snake that's found around here is a diamondback water snake. This is a big fella also. It can get up, like the copperbelly, they can get up to 4 feet, perhaps sometimes even close to 5 feet. Diamondback water snake's not very well named. You have to really use some imagination to get a diamond pattern out of that. But that's another one of our big non-venomous water snakes. Then there's an interesting aquatic or aquatic burrowing snake that is found in the tri-state area. It was exterminated from Indiana about 100 years ago. This is the mud snake. And it's still found very locally and very sparingly in western Kentucky and southern Illinois. It's a big snake. This is a young one here, actually. But it's a big snake. It can get to 4 feet, 5 feet, perhaps even close to 6 feet long. It's not related to the other water snakes of North America. As a matter of fact, its nearest relative is probably the little worm snake that you find in southern Indiana. It used to be about a foot long. It has a very stubby tail, or quite a stubby tail, that has a sharp spine at the end. And when I was collecting down in the Boothville of Missouri and down in Arkansas years ago with my brother, everybody called this snake the stinging snake, and they told us that it stung with its tail. And some people said that it could even stick a tail in its mouth and roll down the hill like a hoop. And when it got to the bottom of the hill, it would stick the tail in the tree, and all the leaves on the tree would die and fall off. But anyhow, this snake also is a real food specialist. It feeds almost entirely on 2 big eel-like salamanders. One of these, which is fairly common around here, although very few people see it, is the siren, the mud eel. It's a mud-burrowing aquatic salamander. It isn't quite limbless. If this were a real sharp picture, you would see there's some tiny limbs up here, and there's some tiny external gills. And this fella gets, the biggest ones I've seen were maybe 18 inches long. And then there is a bigger aquatic salamander. This is the amphiuma, or the mud eel, or what a lot of the southern people where we used to collect called the lamper eel. It gets to be maybe 2-3 feet long, and it has 4 very tiny vestigial limbs. You can't see one pair of them there, but it has 4 very tiny vestigial limbs. And incidentally, a big amphiuma can bite. They're not poisonous, but they can bite. And these 2 big salamanders are the main food of the mud snake. In fact, almost the only food of the mud snake. And they probably one reason why the mud snake has its present, or has distribution of that. It knows where the food is. Now we also have some southern tree frogs that come up into the tri-state area. This is a little one that looks in fact, from this picture you couldn't say this isn't a gray tree frog. You look out in the exhibit, you'll see the common gray tree frog. This happens to be the bird voice tree frog, and it differs in that it has an entirely different voice. It has a very bird-like whistling voice. And where our common tree frog has a yellow or orange wash to the inner surfaces of the hind leg, this one has a green wash. And also the bird voice frog is just a tad smaller. Another little southern tree frog that gets up here is the green tree frog. It is bright green, it's a gorgeous little thing. Sometimes has bright yellow spots, little specks on this, and always has this bright white stripe. It's another one that gets up into Kentucky and southern Illinois. Neither of these frogs have yet been taken in Indiana, but they come close enough that you probably could almost hear them from the Indiana side of the Ohio. They come right up practically to the edge of the Ohio in the swamps. Never been taken, either one of them never been taken in Indiana, but they're both in Kentucky and Illinois. Okay. Now another type of habitat that we have around here that's very productive of amphibians and reptiles, particularly reptiles, are the rocky uplands. We don't have any real mountains here, but we have the so-called Illinois Ozarks, and we have the interior low plateaus, or what are known as the knobs. Ozarks are to the west and the knobs to the east. And you get this sort of habitat, forested hillsides, not terribly high, with rocky outcrops. And here is one of the famous snake hunting places of the whole world. These are the great snake dens along the Big Muddy River in extreme southern Illinois. Around the 1950s, this was a real snake hunter's paradise. I don't know that I ever had a place where you could get a nicer variety of snakes than you could here if you get a good day in the spring. And the snakes that were particularly common here were the cottonmouth. Timber rattler was not uncommon. Several kinds of water snakes, ringneck snakes, just a great variety of stuff along these bluffs. This is all protected now as part of the Shawnee National Forest. I haven't been over there in a long time, and I don't know what the status of the snake populations are now. One of these roads actually is closed during the period when the snakes are moving between the bluffs and the swamp, so the snakes don't get killed by traffic. So this is one of the world-famous snake areas. And there are also lots of rocky streams and cliffs in this part of the tri-state area, in the hilly parts of the tri-state area. And the plants here sometimes include some Appalachian species like the mountain laurel. And here you find the biggest and most dangerous of our poisonous snakes, the timber rattler. You heard, got a good account of the timber rattler this morning, so I'm not going to say very much more about it, except that it is, as you heard, extremely rare in Indiana, pretty rare in Kentucky, and Unless things have changed pretty recently, it used to be moderately common in parts of southern Illinois. I don't know if that's true anymore or not. But at any rate, there is perhaps the most spectacular and certainly the most dangerous snake in the tri-state area. And then we have the commonest of the poisonous snakes in the tri-state area. Although you once in a while find it in other kinds of places. This is the copperhead. Again, you heard a nice account of the copperhead this morning. I'm not going to say much more about it, but it is the commonest of our poisonous snakes and is found sort of throughout the area except in the real floodplain. And again, it's pretty much a snake of upland rocky country. And it's very often, as you again heard this morning, confused with the Midwest banded water snake. If somebody tells you they saw a copperhead in the water, they probably saw something else. I have seen a good many copperheads in many places, and I've yet to see one in the water. I've seen them on the banks of creeks within a foot or two of the water, but I've yet to see one actually in the water of the creek. So the Midwest banded water snake, also the hojo snake, what I knew as a boy, the spreading viper, can be confused with copperhead, and I have been fooled into thinking the hognose snakes were small timber rattlers at times. Hognose snake's coloration can be extremely variable. They can almost have the exact coloring of the copperhead, and they also can have pretty much the exact coloring of the timber rattler. I've confused them with both species in my time. And then the most attractive of the snakes of the tri-state area to me is the milk snake. It's more common as you get over into the hilly country, into the hilly rocky countries, much the same sort of habitat that you get copperheads in. This is one from over not far from Albany, and happens to be an intermediate between the red milk snake and the eastern milk snake. As you get west into extreme southwestern Indiana and Kentucky and over into southern Illinois, the red blotches are bigger, there's a white collar at the base of the head, and you're into the true red milk snake. Now there are a lot of caves, particularly in the Kentucky and Indiana part of the tri-state area, and the caves are associated with some interesting salamanders. The commonest one of these, which also shows up in springs, including some springs right around the outskirts of Evansville, is the orange cave salamander. Slender, orange to red salamander with many southern Indiana farmers, my grandfather included, called the red lizard. And it's the common cave salamander of this region, or one of the commoner small salamanders. Two others are very rare and very local. This is the northern red salamander, which is known for just one spot in Indiana and several spots in western Kentucky. It's typically an Appalachian salamander, and it's about the same color as the orange cave salamander, but it's a bigger, stockier salamander. It's found around the mouths of caves, around cool spring runoff. Very, very rare. I have never personally collected one in the end. And then just last summer, less than a year ago, this salamander was found in southern Indiana in Crawford County. This is the green salamander. It's a rather small salamander, at least the Indiana one, this beautiful green and black color, and it's quite unlike any other salamander we have around here. Again, this is an Appalachian salamander, and what we are seeing out in Crawford County seems to be a remote outpost for the salamander. Very interesting discovery, and shows that there's still new things showing up even in a well-known part of the country like southern Indiana or like the tri-state area. In the larger streams of the tri-state area, you still find a few hellbenders. This is one of the biggest salamanders of the world. Local people, when I was growing up around New Albany, they called this the big water dog. There's another similar salamander they call it the little water dog, or the spotted water dog. This is a big, ugly, sloppy-looking salamander, flabby-looking. Gets to be, 20 inches, 24 inches long. lives in large, relatively clear, rocky streams. And it's endangered in Indiana, it's endangered in Illinois, and I don't know about Kentucky. But it is it's a very uncommon salamander, but not very long ago, one of these was found in the Wabash, a few miles on the Illinois side, but in the Wabash, a few miles downstream from New Harmony. So maybe there's still a few of them around. There's an old specimen in the National Museum in Evansville and stuff. So at one time, it evidently was in the mainstream of the Ohio. I'm pretty sure it's the relic prairies. They're sometimes called barrens in southern Indiana. Sometimes they're much more open than this. But this is another habitat that produces some very interesting reptiles. It also has some interesting plants. A lot of the plants here are what you might find in western prairies, one of these wild sunflowers, the pine snake. It's found only in Kentucky. It's been reported several times from the land between the lakes country, and I think there are one or two other spots in western Kentucky. It's never been reported from Indiana, never from Illinois. It's a great big snake, 6, maybe even 7 feet long. It is the pygmy rattle. This is a small venomous snake. It's really a minute rattlesnake. Its rattle is so small that it's practically inaudible. It's warning. This little fella is usually about 18 to 20 inches long, occasionally maybe 2 feet. And he's a little rattlesnake, and he is venomous, of course, although not deadly. And then a commoner snake of these barrens and open areas is the prairie king snake. Kind of a dimly blotched, smooth-looking snake, maybe 3 to 4 feet long. And a frog that is characteristic of this part of this sort of habitat, this prairie habitat, is the gopher frog or the crawfish frog. This is a fairly big frog, not quite as big as a bullfrog or a greenhead, but it's a good-sized frog. It spends most of its life in crawfish holes, and in the early spring breeds in shallow, temporary ponds. Used to be fairly common in the Evansville area. At one time, there were a lot of these in the Evansville area, and they have vanished in the last maybe 20 years, the last couple of decades. This frog's been getting uncommon almost throughout its whole range. It's now threatened in Indiana. We don't really know why it's disappeared. It's just disappeared. Then there's another sort of open country habitat that is particularly dear to me because I literally grew up in it. These are the claystone glades, or what we call the balls, down on the southern Indiana knobs. I'm sure there's similar habitat to this in Kentucky, probably in southern Illinois. And this is a habitat that's disappearing apparently just through natural causes. The forest is gradually encroaching on these glades or balls, and you don't, they just seem to be getting smaller and smaller, and in my lifetime they've shrunken a great deal. This is a little more close-up of what this habitat looks like. This is open country. It's very hot in the summer. It was very common when I was growing up here, and now it's practically gone. However, still around in another sort of setting. We'll talk about that in a minute or two. But anyhow, the 6-line race runners were very plentiful. And then, before I was out of high school, we discovered 2 snakes that had never been found in Indiana before. One of them was the crown snake. This is a tiny little snake. It's very slender and never more than maybe 10 or 11